Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Fly Under. Penelope Skinner's first play, I'm going to have to whisper as I say this, was Sell-Out, smash hit and Critics' Choice in the Time Out. And her recent play, Village Bike, at the Royal Court, won the George Devine Award and the Most Promising Playwright Award at the Evening Stand Theatres Award. And Tim Hoare has been the final Heller Foundation director trained here at Chichester Festival Theatre and one of the triumvirate of directors who've made Theatre on the Fly happen. So welcome to them both. So, could I just ask, could you just whiz through how this world premiere of Fred's Diner comes to be here at Theatre on the Fly?
Yes. I was looking for a home for the play, and I'd worked with Tim before, and he was looking for a play, and I sent it to you to read, I think, and then he was going to commission me to write a play for here, and I said, why don't you just do that one? And he said, okay then, and that was it.
You'd worked before?
Yes, I was the assistant director on Eigengrau at the Bush Theatre, which was Penny's second full-length play, which was directed by a mutual friend of ours, and since then have been badgering her ever since to send me plays, which was, fantastic when we realised that we could do it here. There were lots of really happy coincidences as well, I think, about doing Fred's Diner here from a theatrical point of view, to have a roadside, to build a roadside diner in, well, I should leave Penny to explain that there is a connection with Chichester in her life as well, that was some of the inspiration for the play. And also we said to ourselves we had to agree as directors on certain parameters that all our plays would have to observe, like cast size. You couldn't have a play with more than 6 people, 7 tops, and then somebody else would have to lose an actor because of the way we're funded. So, to find a 6-hander play like this was just a dream come true, really.
And it's set in Fred's Diner, a roadside diner. Now, roadside diners are pretty strong flavours in culture, aren't they? What drew you to that?
Is that for me? Yes.
Yeah, could be.
Well, I have been a waitress. Like Tim was saying, I was a waitress in a cafe in Chichester for a while, and that inspired the play, the world of the play. And then because I like those films about waitresses, I sort of thought I'd make it in America.
Yes.
But England, obviously, but an American diner. Does that answer the question?
It does, yes.
Okay.
Very good. Tim, do you want to add anything? What drew you to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive fan of kind of kitsch Americana, especially transplanted outside of America. I think there's something really evocative and slightly otherworldly about it. They're sort of, I mean, even if you just stop at a Little Chef petrol station combo, it's an amazingly weird community that you've just, in the middle of nowhere, that you've just stumbled upon, and that's where some people spend their whole working day and then go home and come back there, and it's just an amazing thing. And it is a very American flavour, but it does exist here, and it's even more removed somehow because it's in the wrong country, which is great.
And so, how much of this, obviously what you can't say, we're not going to give any of the plot away, but how much of the kind of personal experiences of living this, I mean, it's obviously fed into it, but how much do you think personal experience being a waitress has gone into it? Sorry, difficult question to ask. Maybe I think I'm going to hand over in a moment to the audience to ask questions, but...
Well, I know about things like clearing tables and stuff like that. That helped.
No, but you were saying there were some great... It's not ruining anything in the play to say that the owner of the diner cuts corners occasionally, which was true of the guy.
He used to take £10 off our cash in hand pay every week for tax. So we would get paid £10 less, basically. I don't really know why. Things like that.
Yeah.
He wasn't...
So he was essentially taking tax on behalf of the government and not giving it to them. So it was cash in hand minus what you would have lost in tax that he keeps, which is a pretty amazing detail.
Oh my God.
You explained that better than I did.
But I think there's a sort of the diner girl, the waitresses of diners in American film culture especially are quite put upon. It's a sort of well-known tough job.
Yeah.
Really, really hard work, really low pay, really tiring, dependent on tips.
Yeah.
And the exploitation inherent in that system and in waitressing and waitering generally.
And the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a classic job that you can do when you're young and starting out. And thereby, it's also a job for young people just who are deciding what they want to do, and it seems that's exactly where the play is set, about a young person who's deciding what to do.
Yeah, one of them is a young person.
Yeah. How much is this about a kind of a play about choices that you want people to be making, or that we want people to be making?
I think it's play about choices you want to be able to make but may not feel able to.
Ladies and gentlemen, do we have any questions coming up?
Let me ask a question about the set design and ask you any particulars, whether this is how you imagined your play would look like in the theatre.
Yeah, it's not bad actually. Yeah, I had the counter the other way round in my head, but it wouldn't have worked. Sometimes I don't think I imagine things very well on a stage. I just sort of imagined a diner, which was probably quite unhelpful because then the audience need to be able to see certain things, and so it's a slightly different way round somehow. But yeah, I think it's pretty close to what I'd imagined. Do you think it looks...
It's not like a Little Chef, that's what I'm...
Oh, I see. No, it's not meant to be a Little Chef.
No, it's definitely not. No, they're at the bottom of the... Little Chef can buy out places like this. That's the nightmare. I think it's mentioned in the play that the former manager was headhunted by Little Chef. Which was a great loss.
So they must have been giving away the jokes, yeah. And it's set in on a ring road near Oxford.
It is a fictional ring road.
Yeah.
Well, no, there is a ring road in Oxford.
Yeah.
But the diner is... I went to a diner on, I think it was the M1.
Yes.
That is like an American diner. I think there is more than one, but there is one on the M1 if you...
Is there?
Go there, yeah. But there's not... I don't think there's one in Oxfordshire, is there?
Not that I could immediately find.
It's not based on a real one.
No. But Tim went to Oxford. Did you study near Oxford?
No, I'm from Abingdon, near
You're
Oxford.
Abingdon. Very good.
Yeah.
And so you can really picture the world that this is happening and the people.
Yeah, the places are referenced in the play are real places in Oxfordshire, and the girl in the play wants to go to Oxford and things like that. But I didn't go to Oxford.
Penny, I'd like to ask you, how readily did you hand over your creation to Tim? And whilst you were directing Tim, did you kind of come in and interfere? How did you manage that arrangement? Because having the
he did interfere quite a lot, actually.
A blessing in some ways.
No, it's always nice when somebody says that they'll put your play on. I guess that's like one of the good moments. We did work on the play quite a lot together. I think when you know it's happening, it's a different part of the process. There's a kind of... It just exists for me, and then trying to find somewhere that it will go, and then when it's happening, then we spoke a lot at that point, I guess, about what could be... And also there was quite a period of time, so it was like maybe a year and a half between when I first wrote it and when we knew that it was happening, so I had a bit more distance from it at that point, and it was useful to have somebody to talk about everything with and go through it all. It's not easy, but you sort of have to do it, I guess.
And when you knew the space that you were doing it, was there a temptation to start tweaking to say, oh, that can now be made to fit more to this context? I mean, the authentic road noise that we've been talking about.
I don't think so, because it just sort of worked anyway.
Right.
I think because it's set in a diner, that is quite. It's a space that lends itself to this, and the
Yes.
road will make. Yeah, so not in this case.
So,
Yeah.
and how do you write? I mean, do you write by steeping yourself in the culture of places, or do you? How does it you know that you've come up with a play?
In the case of this play, it just sort of arrived in the way that it. Sometimes like it's a struggle, and sometimes. In the case of this play, I don't really know. It just sort of like that sounds really annoying, but
It emerged in your head.
Sort of, yeah.
Was it fully formed? Did you know what was going to happen?
I can't remember, but
No.
sort of, yeah,
Yeah.
in a weird way than usual.
And as you're writing these scenes out, you already know what's going to happen, or do you surprise yourself when that happens?
Yeah, a bit of both, I guess.
Yeah.
Sometimes and sometimes not. Ask Tim something.
Well, in answer to your second question, I think what's useful for a director is to have the writer around, especially once rehearsals have started for the initial week or whatever, when you're all sitting around a table together and talking about it, and you're hearing it read through by that company who are going to be in it for the first time, and you can hear things and make changes that occur to the writer at that point. And then the writer sometimes goes away for a bit, leaves you all to it, and then comes back when you're sort of ready to start running it in any degree, and having somebody come back who's got some perspective and who knows the play better than anyone else, because you've been at the coalface with the actors. It's an amazing bonus to have that second pair of eyes throughout towards the finishing line, which you don't obviously get if you do a play by William Shakespeare. You know, it's just you, and you have to know your own mind really, really well, and sometimes it will take you a few previews to know whether something's working or not. So no, it's a great asset.
It sounds such a layered process. You write the play, and then you have to work with a director, and then you have to work with actors, and then there's design and lighting. It sounds quite, very exciting, but I guess it's a load of work fitting in with all those layers, is it?
Definitely. I think it's amazing how quickly suddenly it stops being just a conversation between two people, or indeed an idea that one person has, and so many other voices are crowding in. But often if you're working with good people, good designers and good lighting designers and all the rest of it, which we were, everybody should want to serve the writing, and so that it should be adding momentum as well as complicating things, hopefully.
I just wonder, to your knowledge, is it the first time a play has been set in a diner? Given that it's likely to be such a fertile ground for interesting characters and plots.
The first time a play has been set in a diner?
Don't know.
I don't know. I certainly think it's probably the first time a British play has been set in a diner.
There's one film that I can recall, probably from the 80s, which was called Baghdad Cafe, which was very interesting in that it brought forward some very interesting characters who seem to spend their whole lives living in this place.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of working out why it's shut or only just open, so that there doesn't have to be too many customers there. Things only happen. Yeah.
But if you do spend a lot of time in a single place, whether it's a pub or a cafe or a diner or whatever, you do start to notice that there's a family of regulars, and that they'll know when they're alone together, and that there are stories going on in there. Whereas if there's lots of strangers in there, then you wouldn't notice, but they are there, living their sort of strange story.
Their family life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Could I ask a question about how you use the actors to help shape the play? I mean, because this is a play with a very small number of actors, it's new writing as well. I'm wondering whether you allow the actors to bring in something from their own lives and their own stories and their own influences into the play to help formulate how the play is going to be performed, or whether you as a writer, particularly, or you as a director too, would like to see kind of integrity being pursued in terms of the script or the dialogue that you've written already?
Both, probably. I mean, during the rehearsal, if there are things which come up, then in this case we didn't have a lot of time. We only had 3 weeks, and I think if you have more time, it's more likely that things will feed the script because you'll have more time to improvise stuff, or we'll talk maybe more than you would in a 3-week rehearsal period. So in this case, not as much as sometimes, but if we talk about things and I think, oh yeah, that's better, or that makes sense, then definitely it will change. But I hope that once it's the dialogue, that's what they'll say. That's the aim. Yeah, definitely.
I think in the case of this play, for example, one of the actors was from a certain place, and so there was a decision about whether or not to embrace that or not, and things like that, I suppose, you always have to be interested in with new writing. Well, with any play, really. So as Penny says, you have to welcome what's on offer, and the less time you have, the more brutal you have to be, I suppose, because you have to make executive decisions so that you can move on.
Yeah. Well, I'm just because I know there are some writers who've had work performed here who actually haven't want actors to go away and to do their own research and come back in, and you use that to...
Oh, really? They don't want that?
They don't want that.
Ah.
And then there have been other writers who do want that and actually encourage that.
Yeah.
I think it depends a lot on your process. I know a director who was directing a sort of classic farce in which a character stuttered in a very specific way, and that actor went off and studied speech impediments till the cows came home, and came back and had done all this research and had arrived at their stutter. And the director just said, well, you've completely wasted your time because you have to stutter on these particular letters or the jokes won't work. That's all there is to it. That's how it's written, and that's how you have to do it. Whereas someone like Mike Leigh would welcome... I mean, he starts without a script. He just starts with actors, and he has weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and it all bubbles away, and you keep letting them add and add and add, and then you edit that into a new play. But he gets... about 14 weeks to rehearse, whereas we had 3. So it depends what you're dealing with.
Can I say?
Yes.
We came on Monday to see it, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
Could you possibly tell me how you feel when you hear someone read your script through, and then you come back, and then you see the movement and the productions grow from then? How do you feel? Seem excited, or?
Do you know, the best I feel is when it's over and I remember it, I think. When it's on, I'm too tense to enjoy it, sadly. I don't know why. I don't know whether that will change, but at the moment I feel as though I'm sort of with them doing it, and it might go wrong at any moment. And sometimes it's amazing. If I've had like a glass of wine or something, then usually it's a bit more... I enjoy it a bit more then. But I like to remember it afterwards when it's finished, if that makes sense. That's probably the best time that it is. That sounds really sad, but anyway, there you go. But no, yeah. Oh, thank you.
Do you have a question?
Hi, what I had a question about was this whole concept and that whole building and everything that you've established here, and maybe we can answer that. Of why it can't go on to somewhere else?
The structure?
Yeah, the structure and the whole thing.
Well, in theory, you could have built it that way, absolutely. But in terms of the actual building, it was only ever built to be a one-off. You know. Yes, it was a young collective of architects called Assemble, who designed it, and they welcome a lot of volunteers, many of whom were young, to help build it. So it was a great community enterprise from the start. But unfortunately, the way we had to build it was quite bespoke. And if you took this apart and tried to put it back together again, you'd be here a long time, because it is all put together in a very ad hoc way. If we had built it as a kit, then it would be amazing to think of ways to keep it moving, touring it, erecting it in other places, and perhaps that would be what you did if you got the chance to do it again. But it was always meant to be a special anniversary one-off in terms of building. In terms of the plays, whether or not you can find another home for the plays is a different question. And I think, you know, we don't expect anything, but we'd be delighted if we could, especially a new play like this, if it could have another life. But
I can imagine it. What's that road as you go up to Scotland, where all the lorries go and everything? I can imagine it set up, you know, taking place up there.
We could build a real diner, perhaps.
Yeah, we could do that. We could go on the road with it. We could just stick the actors in the trailer and drive up and down the motorway.
To different diners.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Coming to a diner near you.
Do it witness style.
Yeah.
Someone doesn't. Thank you.
I really thought the way you did the relationship between Fred and Melissa was like brilliant, and how it sort of at the start.
Before you go any further.
Yeah, I won't. At the start, how it's like set up, and I was just wondering, like, was there anything that sort of inspired that, like, sort of in the news, or did you decide, or was it just the characters that it came out like?
Yeah, I don't really remember how or why, although things in the news have kind of reflected it since, I guess. But I'm interested in those things. Can't really say, but yeah, don't know.
I just wanted to ask, when you went to Oxford School of Drama, were you an actress there, or
Well, and trying to be.
Yeah, and that's informed kind of how you approach, or does that inform how you approach? So you look at it. Do you go at it through a kind of method process by you going, I need to action these lines so that they make sense, or do
not that specifically, but yes, in terms of I set out their kind of objectives and their, like, maybe I just sort of try to remember what they want all the time, or as much as possible. So yeah, definitely there's like a training thing in my mind which is going on. Yeah.
We probably have time for just a couple more questions if anybody has. Yes, please. Sorry.
You obviously dreamed of this play, but is your mind always looking at the next play? It was just mentioned that this would be a terrible structure to pull apart and rebuild. Is it a play of that? Yeah. Is that how your repertoire progresses?
Maybe once, now that this is up and happening, I'm thinking about the next one, but not until maybe while this is on, I find it hard to think about much else. It's weird, it's like sort of you've given birth to it a bit and then you can think about the next one.
So
Room or something.
You're not working on the next script, but if you are, it's way back there. You're still on this one.
I don't know. It's more like if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, do you have an idea for a new play? I probably would have said no, and then something will happen, and I'll think, oh no, actually, I feel like I'm ready to think of the next one. Yeah, because this one's out there now.
Yeah. How many plays have you written now?
which have been on or which have been
No,
not
that
on?
you've written total. Yeah.
I don't know. About
Loads.
no, maybe I don't know.
Really?
I have to count them. Eight maybe.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just curious. So, ladies and gentlemen, unless there's another question. Yeah, go on, Amelia.
I just say a quick one about rewriting your script. Do you sort of do a lot of rewriting, or do you tend to make the first draft really precise?
Oh, I'd love to do that, but no, I'm a rewriter definitely. Yeah, I think we're on 13, are we? Draft 13 of this, probably by the time it went off. Yeah, I mean, all of those won't be massive, like start again from the beginning, but maybe big changes, 4 or 5, maybe, yeah. Yeah, with my last play, I did have to start the whole thing all over again, just because it wasn't right, but that's unusual. This one arrived not bad. I thought, anyway.
I think redrafting is a really interesting. Lots of the tips you can give writers, or that writers are given, it's sort of like a dark art in lots of ways. It depends entirely on the play, and they say writing is rewriting. You know, if you don't have the discipline of revisiting and editing your work, then you're not really a writer, because you just assume that the first thing that came out was right. That doesn't mean the first thing that came out is wrong either.
Although Pinter apparently never rewrote anything.
I don't believe that.
He did. He just one draft and that was it.
Well,
I believe it.
There's always an exception that proves the rule. We know that William Shakespeare rewrote a lot of what he wrote. But certainly also I think what's interesting is that if you ask a writer, if you can over rewrite something as well, which is that's the other hard thing, and you can lose a whiff of something that may have been cruder or rawer that was right about what you had before, but you can out clever yourself, or you can try and, you know, you're no longer thinking about it the way that somebody seeing that for the first time is thinking about it. You're thinking about it in the way that somebody's very, very familiar with it, and you could start to sort of corrupt it almost, I think. So it's really a fascinating process that I have very little knowledge of, and that this has been a great experience.
That is true, but I think that is part of the process. That if you corrupt it, you can still fix it.
You can still go back to what you've had.
It's probably
absolutely.
better to corrupt it and then fix it than to never corrupt it at all.
Yes.
Unless you're Pinter, in which case, fine.
Is there somebody very clever in the audience who knows the Pinter short piece that was done at a kind of... It wasn't a roadside cat, but it was one of those boxes.
It was done at St Paul's, wasn't it? It was one of those cafes that the newsmen used to go to.
Yeah.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes.
It's called The Last to Go.
The Last Go. There you go. Yeah,
Oh,
because it remember all that kind of urban noise and of the building, and it's set in this kind of...
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What? One draft. Yeah,
One draft.
One draft.
He was just like that.
Okay, so we have actually got other writers in the audience. I'm not going to point them out, but 17 drafts, does that sound fair?
13.
13. Yeah. How about,
Did you enjoy
producing,
producing, directing it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was my. This is my professional debut. It was the culmination of 2 years of training here. So it's been fantastic, an amazing opportunity that wasn't really meant to happen. It wasn't sort of part of the training. It just so happened that I finished at the right time to make all of this happen and to get to direct Penny's play. So.
You're on the way up.
Well, actually, I'm on the way down. There's nothing on the other side of this.
Rubbish. Who in the... Yes.
I'm sorry you haven't got the espresso machine working. But,
would you take a cup?
Has the theatre through the fly been a success?
I think so. I work here, but that's not fair, is it? So, we should ask the audience, shouldn't we?
Yes. I mean, I think all of the things we set out to do were sort of achieved. A lot of the things that we set out to do were achieved the moment we declared our programme, the moment we got a play like Fred's Diner, because, as well as setting ourselves the task of building a theatre, you need a lot more than that. You need content for it, and we wanted to push a slightly more audacious or adventurous artistic agenda than you usually get here. And so to get a Penelope Skinner play was, half the battle won. And after that, it's just about getting an audience in and hopefully seeing if they enjoy it. And so far, we seem to have. So yes, I think we're really happy and lucky with what's happened.
Have you had reasonable houses? I mean, the main house, Minerva, had more or less full houses every time. Do you get a good audience?
We've had particularly good audiences so far for Fred Steiner, yes.
We came to Blue Remembered Hills and that was full and it was very good.
Yes, Blue Remembered Hills. Noah sold out. Playhouse Creatures had some really full audiences, particularly at the beginning and the end, I think. But, I mean, yes, we considering how people tend to come on the day or book a week in advance and know more to this sort of a theatre, which is great because it's a different culture of theatre going. Yes, and they think about the weather and all the rest of it. So we look at our pre-sales and we often despair, but then on the day you suddenly get this swell of people, and that's really nice because it's a short-term, off-the-cuff kind of enterprise, and that's what it was supposed to be. I think if we'd sold out immediately, it would have been, on one hand, a bit of a relief, but actually it would have suggested that we got something wrong because we want people to roll up and feel like they can.
We came last week and it was absolutely chock-a-block.
Yes, last week was very busy, very happily, and so far remaining so.
How many of you have already seen this, Fred Steiner? And how many are going tonight? Very good.
Great.
And before we part, is there... Two questions. Is there something that you would like to whisper into the ear of a prospective audience? Say, notice that. I'm really happy with that.
I'm quite happy with the snow.
Yeah, the snow's good.
I'm quite chuffed with that.
Very good.
We didn't know if that would work.
You see, they're all looking at the snow now.
Yeah, we like it. It's on the ledges.
Very happy with that.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I tell you something that I think is really brilliant? Scaffboards painted pink. Who thought of that? I mean, that's just... It's so camp, but yet so not camp. It's just genius. Don't you think?
When is it set? Because to me it looks like 1950s.
Yeah.
Well, it's a 50s style diner, but that's the kind of that's the style that seems to last.
In the diner,
yeah. Oh great. Oh great.
They're going to tell you.
Look out for K7.
Have you had any interesting interactions from being in this building, in this space, with Blue Remembered Hills and with Playhouse Creatures and Noah? The environment played quite a part, particularly when it was tipping down with rain outside, and sometimes members of the public would sort of come in from the back because they were interested.
Yes.
Anything interesting happened here? People come into the diner?
We had some students, didn't we, shouting in. That was exciting. That was on like the second night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Hello! They were shouting. Low point.
Everybody coming in, expecting to get coffee and a...
No, luckily no bookings for Fred Steiner as yet. Nobody's reserved a table.
Has anyone tried to sit in the booths?
No, I don't think so.
It's a shame.
But yes, because it's closed, we're slightly safer. Then I think on the first night, I mean, I think you can hear there's probably some visitors already. But on the first preview, I think a man literally lifted his son, who was about 3, up, and he just wandered across the back ledge. You could see him poking through the gaps, and when they were sort of said, look, we're in the middle of our first preview here, the man took quite serious offence, picked the child up, put him on the back of his bike, and then took a long time bicycling past and ringing his bell very loudly. So we were the victims of a vigilante bicyclist.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much to Penelope Skinner and Tim Hoare, and to you for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.